Sister, you go kill this interview. I'm telling you, today is your day.
From your mouth to God's ear. She pressed 200 naira into his palm for transport. It was almost the last she had.
In the heart of bustling Lagos, Bella carried one dream: to escape poverty and change her family's life forever. After years of struggle, sleepless nights, and rejection, she finally received a chance at the perfect job. Dressed in her best clothes and holding tightly to her interview letter, Bella rushed through the crowded streets with hope in her eyes. But just minutes before reaching the office, she noticed an old woman collapse by the roadside, ignored by everyone passing by. Bella froze. If she stopped to help, she would miss the interview that could change her future forever. If she walked away, she might regret it for the rest of her life. What Bella chose that day became a lesson about kindness, destiny, and the blessings hidden inside sacrifice. The folded letter. Onikui, chie ekwi. When a person says yes, their chi says yes also. Igbo proverb. Bella Enyamuyu read the letter for the fourth time that morning, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something even better than what they already said. Greenstone Holdings, the farm her late father had pointed at from across the lagoon when she was 9 years old and said, "One day, my daughter, one day," and had invited her to a final interview. 47 candidates. 3 positions. Wednesday, 10 o'clock sharp, at the head office on Akin Adesola Street, Victoria Island. She folded the letter along its familiar creases and pressed it flat against her chest. Outside her window in Suralere, Lagos was already awake, buses coughing toward the mainland bridge, generators humming, a hawker singing the price of boiled groundnuts down the street. Her mother had died in March. The hospital bills had eaten the savings. The rent on the 2-bedroom flat she shared with her younger brother Chinedu was 3 weeks late, and the landlord's son had stopped knocking and started shouting from the gate. This job was not a job. It was a door. "Lord," she whispered, "just let me reach there on time." The morning of the door. Akpa no aisa adigi efu enozo. A bag with a head does not get lost in the market. Igbo proverb. She left the house at 7, although the interview was at 10 and Victoria Island was only an hour away on a kind morning. Lagos was rarely kind in the morning. Bella wore the navy skirt suit her mother had bought her 2 birthdays ago, the one her mother had laid across the bed and smoothed with both hands as if pressing a prayer into the fabric. The blouse was cream. The shoes were second-hand but polished until the toes caught the early light. In her bag, she carried 3 copies of her CV, a small bottle of water, a packet of chin-chin from the woman who sold by the bus stop, and the folded letter from Greenstone Holdings. Chinedu, 16 and still in his school uniform, walked her to the junction. "Sister, you go kill this interview," he said in the half-pidgin he used when he wanted to sound braver than he felt. "I'm telling you. Today is your day." From your mouth to God's ear, Bella said. She pressed 200 naira into his palm for transport. It was almost the last she had. The downfall to CMS was crowded but moving. She sat by the window and watched Lagos unfold the way it always did, the rusted roofs of Mushin, the long grey spine of Third Mainland Bridge, the lagoon flashing silver beneath them like a knife laid flat. She rehearsed her answers under her breath. "Tell me about yourself. Why Greenstone? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? 5 years." She could not even see 5 days. But she had answers ready for all of them, smooth as river stones. At CMS she changed to the Follow-bound bus. The traffic thickened. The driver took a side route through Oniken to dodge the hold-up at Independence Bridge, and for 15 minutes the bus did not move at all. 9:15. 9:22. 9:31. Bella's palms began to sweat against the strap of her bag. She thought of the rent. She thought of Chinedu's school fees for next term. She thought of her mother's hand on the fabric of the suit, smoothing, smoothing. At 9:40 the bus crawled onto Omadu Bello Way. She got down 2 stops early and started to walk fast, her shoes already pinching the woman by the gutter. Bieba ense netori iku, eki aisea koja aya agbatu ob. Even when fleeing from death, one does not run past a fallen elder. Yoruba proverb. She saw the woman first as a shape, a heap of wrapper cloth and a tilted basket on the edge of the open drain just past the petrol station on Akinadesela. People were passing. A man in a suit stepped neatly around her. Two women in matching osoebi glanced and walked on, their galley swaying. A boy on an okada slowed, looked, and accelerated. The woman was old, perhaps 70, perhaps older, and she had fallen. Her wrapper had come loose. Tomatoes from her basket were rolling toward the gutter, where the brown water waited. Bella's feet kept walking. 3 more steps. 4. She heard her mother's voice then, not as a memory but as something said aloud at her shoulder. Bella. You are not the kind of person who walks past. She turned back. Up close, the woman's face was streaked with sweat and a thin red line of blood from where her temple had scraped the concrete. Her breath was coming in short pulls. One of her slippers had slid into the gutter and was floating, slowly, toward the grate. Mama, Bella said, kneeling. Mama, sorry. Sorry. Can you hear me? The woman's eyes opened. They were startling, clear brown, like wet kola nut. My child, she whispered. My head. Bella looked at her watch. 9:51. The Greenstone building was 4 blocks away. 9 minutes fast walk. 8 if she ran. She looked back at the woman. Mama, I will help you, she said. Please. Just don't move. She rescued the tomatoes first, for some reason that mattered, that this woman would not lose her day's earnings to the gutter. She gathered them into her own scarf. She fished the slipper out with the tip of her shoe. She lifted the woman gently to a sitting position against the low wall of the petrol station and pressed her own bottle of water into her hands. I need to get you to a clinic, Mama. Just here, just on this road. You are bleeding. The woman shook her head weakly. My son works at the gas station. There. Tell him Mama Sod has fallen. Bella ran across the forecourt, found a young man in oil-stained coveralls who went very still when she said the name, and within minutes he was crouching beside his mother with a towel and a face full of fear. A taxi was called. The woman was lifted in. The son tried to press money into Bella's hand, a thin roll of notes, all he had, and Bella refused again, finally only accepted a piece of paper on which he had scribbled, with the hand of a man not used to writing, 2 phone numbers and the words. If you ever need anything. She watched the taxi turn the corner. Then she looked at her watch. It was 10:18. The glass door. Oaroti ekeobo efo, ki I pay. What is not spoken does not last. Yoruba proverb. She ran the 4 blocks anyway. Of course she did. Hope is a stubborn thing, and Bella Enyanwi was 26 years old, and her shoes were thin and her father had pointed at the building from across the lagoon when she was 9. The Greenstone Tower rose out of Akinadesela like a clean white tooth, all glass and chrome, the lobby cold with air conditioning that hit her skin like a slap. The security guard checked her name on a clipboard. He frowned. You are late, madam. I know. Please. Please, sir. Just let them know I am here. He looked at her, at the smear of dust on her skirt where she had knelt, at the tomato juice that had bled through her scarf into the lining of her bag, at the way her chest was still heaving, and his face softened. He picked up the phone. She waited in the lobby for 11 minutes. She knew this because she counted them, watching the second hand on the wall clock as if she could slow it. A woman in a black suit eventually came down. Polite. Apologetic in the way people are when they are not actually sorry. Madam Bella, we are so glad you came, but the panel has concluded the morning's interviews and the shortlist has been confirmed. The position has been filled. I was helping someone, Bella said. Her voice did not shake, which surprised her. An elderly woman had fallen on the road. I could not leave her. The woman in the black suit nodded the careful nod of someone who has heard many excuses. We understand. We wish you every success in your future applications. Bella walked out of the building into the white noon heat. She did not cry until she had reached the bus stop and turned her face toward the wall. She cried for her mother, mostly. For the suit her mother had smoothed. For Chinedu and the rent and the way she had failed the one thing she had been given to do. And underneath the crying, very quietly, a smaller thought. But I could not have left her. I could not. The 6 quiet days. Eki aemo ohonti owo en mutiti owo yufayo. One does not know what the hand has caught until the hand opens. Yoruba proverb. She did not tell Chinedu the truth. She said the interview had gone well. She said they would call. She said it the way her mother used to say everything will be alright, my own, flat and certain, the way you say a thing into being. She spent the rest of the week looking for work the way drowning people look for air. She walked to 3 other offices on Allen Avenue with copies of her CV. She answered an advert for a cashier in a supermarket in Yaba. She accepted a one-day catering job at a wedding in Ikeja and came home with 4,000 naira and aching feet. On the 4th evening, the landlord's son came to the gate and shouted until the neighbors opened their windows. Bella stood on the balcony and promised him the rent by Monday. She did not know how. She said it anyway. On the 5th evening, Chinedu found her sitting on the kitchen floor with the folded greenstone letter in her lap. He did not ask. He sat down beside her on the linoleum and put his head on her shoulder, and they stayed like that until the generator down the street coughed off and the dark came down. On the 6th evening, her phone rang. It was a number she did not know. A man's voice, low and careful, asked if she was the young woman who had helped an elderly trader fall down on Akinadesela Street the previous Wednesday. Bella's hand went cold around the phone. Yes, she said. Is Mama Sod well? Please tell me she is well. She is well, the voice said. 6 stitches. They kept her overnight for observation. She is at home eating jollof rice and complaining that her son fusses too much. She has been asking us to find you for almost a week. Us? Bella said. There was a small pause. My mother's name is Folisade Banko, the voice said. My name is Tond. I'm sorry, she did not tell you who she was. She never does. She says it gets in the way of seeing people properly. Bella sat down on the kitchen floor for the 2nd time that week. She knew the name. Everyone in Lagos who read business newspapers knew the name. Folisade Banko had built a logistics empire from a single market stall in Mushin in 1979. Her face had been on the cover of Business Day, the previous Christmas. Her son Ton Banko was the managing director of a holding company with offices in Lagos, Accra, and Nairobi. My mother goes to the market herself every Wednesday, Ton said. His voice was a little unsteady now, a little less careful. She has done it for 43 years. She says if she stops, she will forget what her customers' lives are like. Last week she fell, and 40 people walked past her, and one young woman in a navy suit knelt down in the dirt and picked up her tomatoes one by one. Bella opened her mouth and found nothing there. My mother wants to meet you again, Tan said. And, separately, I would like to ask you something. May I send a car for you tomorrow morning? The hour returned. Aichi ekoro onu, onolegochi enike. What is spoken with the mouth returns to the hand. Igbo proverb. The car came at 9 the next morning. It was a quiet grey thing, the kind of car that does not announce itself. The driver called her madam and held the door. Bella wore the same navy suit. She had washed it twice and pressed it the night before by lamplight, and the smear on the skirt had come out, mostly. They drove to Ekoi. To a house behind a high white wall and a gate that opened without anyone touching it. Mama Sod was waiting on the veranda in a yellow bubu, a small bandage at her temple, both hands held out. "My daughter," she said, and her eyes were wet. My daughter who knelt in the dirt. They ate together. Jollof rice and fried plantain and pepper soup, and the old woman told stories about her first market stall and her dead husband and the time in 1983 when she had sold her only wrapper to pay for a stranger's child's hospital bill, and how that stranger had become, 20 years later, her first major customer. "Goodness is a seed, my daughter," she said. "You do not plant it for the harvest. You plant it because that is what you are." Afterwards, Tan walked Bella to the garden. He was a tall, careful man in his early 40s, with his mother's clear brown eyes and a habit of pausing before he spoke. He did not offer her the job at Greenstone. He told her, instead, that Banco Holdings was opening a community impact division, a small team that would handle the company's outreach programs in the markets of Lagos, the same markets his mother still walked through every Wednesday. "It is not the job you applied for," he said. "It pays less, at first, than what Greenstone would have paid. But it is a position with room to grow, and it is a position that needs the kind of person who stops." Bella looked at him. "I want to be clear," he said. "This is not a reward. My mother does not believe in rewarding kindness. She says it turns it into a transaction. This is a job. We need someone for it. After what you did, and after speaking with 2 of your former lecturers and 1 of your old supervisors at the NGO in Yoba, we believe you are the person we need. The kindness only got you the conversation. Your record is getting you the offer." She accepted with a steady voice and a heart that felt as if it had been turned inside out. On the way home, in the back of the quiet grey car, she took the folded Greenstone letter out of her bag and looked at it for a long time. Then she put it back. Not to throw away. To keep, to remember the hour she had thought belonged to her, and the hour, instead, that had belonged to someone else. What the hand caught. Oni noim aichi oma noesh nku naichu. The one who does good works toward their own future. Igbo proverb. The rent was paid that Monday. Chinedu finished secondary school the following year and entered the University of Lagos to study engineering, his fees handled by Bella and by a small scholarship arranged, quietly, through the Banco Foundation, not for her, but for him, on the basis of his own marks. Bella worked at the Community Impact Division for 4 years. She was promoted twice. She was good at the work, and she came to understand, slowly, that Mama Sod had been right. Goodness was a seed, and the harvest was not the point. The point was the planting. She heard, much later, who had taken the 3rd Greenstone position that morning. A man named Adebola, smart and ambitious, who had arrived on time. He did well there for a while. Then he moved to another firm, then another. He was neither punished nor rewarded, his life simply continued, as most lives do. There was no curse on him for stepping past a fallen woman on Akin Adesola Street. The world is rarely so neat. But Bella sometimes thought about that morning, about the woman by the gutter, about the tomatoes rolling toward the brown water, about the version of herself that had kept walking and how thin and clean that version's life would have been, and how she would not have known, ever, what she had missed. And on Wednesdays, when Mama Sod still walked the markets in her wrapper and her plain slippers, Bella sometimes walked with her. 2 women in a crowd. Stopping, always, for whoever had fallen. The end.